Lura.
Kasua. Wurunga. You haven't heard of Wurunga? Hornspeed.
Blacktown.
Roselle.
Oatley.
On ABC Radio Sydney, this is Breakfast with Robbie Buck and Wendy Harmer.
Well, the whole world was shocked last week after the fatal shooting of Rust cinematographer Helena Hutchins in the US. How could such a thing have happened there? And then we said, could it happen here? And the media union says that there are sometimes corners cut in Australia as well, and that these conditions are sickeningly familiar to Aussie crews.
Yeah, here is the news as it broke in the States.
Tragedy on a movie set in New Mexico. Actor Alec Baldwin involved in a deadly shooting. Police say that Baldwin fired a prop gun and killed the film's cinematographer and wounded the director.
It happened on the set of Baldwin's upcoming Western called Rust. Production of the film has been shut down for the foreseeable future. An investigation is underway.
Of course, sadly enough, there have been incidents here in Australia where film crew members or actors have been killed with weapons on set when they were supposed to be perfectly safe. So let's take a look at what the situation is here. Kelly Wood is the MEAA director, that's the of ECS, Entertainment Crew and Sport, the Media Entertainment Alliance. Morning, Kelly.
Hi, how are you going?
Yeah, obviously a really tragic scenario in the States, but we have had our own, sadly, deaths here in Australia, haven't we?
Yes, in January 2017, one of our members actually was killed on a set of a music video up in Brisbane, Yogi Offner, and in an incident that was unfortunately not too dissimilar to this one. A gun was fired on set directly at him, and he died as a result of that.
Well, we have heard that people who work in film studios and work on sets and, in the United States are pretty angry about this and are saying that a lot of corners are being cut at the moment and non-union labour is being used. Can you give us a bit of a picture of what's going on there and what does it mean for... Do we have the same here in Australia, the same scenario happening?
I think that the reason that people are so angry is because somebody has died and it really should have been preventable. The kind of reports that we're hearing is things like an assistant director handling a firearm. That's something that should never happen. But, other things happening on that set, even things like, crew not getting paid on time or crew having to drive really long distances to get to location and back. And, as an alternative, people sleeping in their cars, as well as reports of accidental discharges of firearms on set. So just so many things that, really point to, I guess, the way that it sounds like this production was being run. Sounded, kind of scary to begin with. And it's really the kind of priorities and the culture on each set is really kind of set by the approach of the producers. And I think that crew in Australia, and I'm sure around the world, have been on productions that they haven't felt entirely safe.
Let's bring in Lisa Scott, who's with us this morning, who's a TV producer. She's originally from Sydney but is now Adelaide-based, and she's just produced The Tourist for the BBC, HBO, Max and Stan. Morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Robbie.
Yeah, look, can you give us an idea of what is required from a producer's point of view and a film set point of view when weapons are used in productions, and they're used a lot? What are the requirements for an Aussie production?
Well, we have very strict requirements, as Kelly knows. We start in pre-production having many conversations about how we use guns and what we use. And to be frank, I hope that blanks are outruled after this, because there is absolutely no way right now anymore with the CGI that we can do in visual effects that we need to even have blanks on sets. But, you do risk assessments like you do for any accident, any stunt, any element of danger has to be signed off by the director, the producer, the first assistant director, and the actor. All have to know what's going on. So I think our communication and our training is world class here. I've been hearing over the weekend some terrible rumours, as Kelly alluded to, about the conditions on this film prior to this accident. And if you cut corners, That's what happens.
Yeah.
So when you go on a set, the gun is handled by the armourer only. The armourer keeps the case. Everything is locked. No one is to touch it. Like I read on this, it said that the first assistant picked up the gun and took it off a cart. That would never happen in Australia. So the armourer opens the gun barrel, shows everybody, and if I'm on set, I'm always on set when something dangerous is being shot, and we open the gun barrel and we check that it's clear. We check everything. We spin it. We look through the chamber. Then the gun is then handed from the armourer to the actor. When the scene is rehearsed and shot, at each element it must come back to the armourer, and then nobody else is to handle the gun.
Right. You mentioned there, Lisa, that you hope that this is the end of blanks being used on film set. Obviously, the technology is there. I mean, why was this movie, do you imagine, still using guns and blanks?
I have no idea, Wendy. I mean, the thing about it is that when you make film, each image you catch is 24 or 25 frames per second, right, of each individual frame. When a gun is fired, you'd need to be shooting at 100 frames a second to capture that muzzle flash, which is what everybody says, oh, I have to have it in camera. No, you don't. You can do it digitally. But I've also heard that they were using live rounds. Now, I don't know whether that's true. I'm not sure if Kelly can elaborate on that, but there is no excuse for either of those things. And blanks, frankly, aren't needed. You know, my partner is an Oscar-nominated visual effects supervisor, and he can do whatever you want in the computer in post-production. You do not need to use this, you know. And this girl, she was an amazing, you know, she just got an award for the Rising Cinematographer of the Year in 2019. A woman in her industry to be a cinematographer at that level is extraordinary at her age, and now we've senseless loss of life.
Yeah. I was listening to an interview over the weekend with a director who talked about how blanks dangerous can be, and before he started his film, apparently, he would take people out into a paddock and set up watermelons and things and show them how you could just, you know, blast a watermelon to smithereens using blanks.
Absolutely. I mean, by nature, they're a projectile. You want to fire something through the barrel. They're not actually, they mightn't have gunpowder, or I don't actually know. I know there's wadding in them. I'm not an expert as an armourer of what's actually made up in a blank round, but they are still a projectile. Yeah. And the other thing is to hear that this was being fired directly at camera, we never do that either. Right. Like, there is no excuse for that, because if it is, then you are definitely not using any live rounds, and it should all be digital effects.
Well, let's go back to Kelly Wood from the MEAA. You heard Lisa there saying, look, from here on in, no need for blanks at all. What do you think, Kelly?
I think it's really... It's a case of horses for courses whether blanks get used or not. I mean, from what I understand, there are different kinds of blanks as well. Right. And that the purpose of using blanks isn't necessarily for, you know, the gun itself. It's actually the impact that it has on performance. So having said that, though, you know, Lisa is 100% correct. You know, blanks can be very dangerous, and that's what happened in the case of Yogi Offner. It was a blank that was used, but it's something that we really do need to look at, the regulation. The coronial inquest into Yogi Offner's death had hearings this August. Our submissions were that we needed a national code of practice for theatrical armourers, and we need a much more stringent process for licensing of theatrical armourers to make sure that people who are in charge of firearms on set are properly qualified. At the moment, you know, we believe that in particular is too lax.
Okay. Yep. All right. Well, look, it's a very sad... Sorry, Lisa?
So I was just going to say that it comes down to people like me to hire the people that have the experience to do the jobs. Yeah. You know, I mean, I believe this armourer on this US set was in her 20s. You know, I would never hire an armourer in her 20s. I mean, most of the people, and we also at the Screen Producers Association, you know, we have a code of safety guidelines that's just been revised, and we all stick very strongly to this, as Kelly knows. Okay. You know, so I just hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
again.
Well, let's hope we don't see another another scenario like this again, because it's terrible. Hey, thank you to the both of you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Such a tragedy.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
is.
Thank you.
Kelly Wood, who's the MEAA Director of Entertainment, Crew and Sport, and Lisa Scott, a TV producer, speaking to us there from Adelaide, originally from Sydney, but she was the producer on The Tourist for the BBC, HBO Max and Stan.
Wake up for breakfast.
The harbour, the zoo. Yes, haven't been to the new one. Have you been to the new one?
Well, the thing I love about Sydney, I love there's so many apartments. It's fantastic. It's just full of apartments.
ABC Radio Sydney.